I'm Trevor Williams with Global Atlanta. I'm here with Orlando Kelm, who is the Associate Director for Business Language Education at the University of Texas Cyber. Dr. Kelm, thanks so much for being with us
Thanks. And
halfway
it's good
across the
morning in
country.
Atlanta, huh?
Yes, sir. We're here today to talk to you about your book that you've written with some of your colleagues. It's called When We Are the Foreigners. Tell us a little bit about what it's about.
Well, we interviewed a whole bunch of companies in China, all the employees at different companies, just to gather their war stories of what's it like to work with Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And we took all those stories and combined them into 8 different chapters of little case studies surrounding all those stories they told us.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really is what is it like from a Chinese perspective to work with North Americans?
Right.
And what are the difficulties? What do you do? What do you do different? That sort
Mm-hmm.
of.
I think
So we
that
started those stories.
Yeah, I think the title is so interesting. The idea that Americans are the foreigners. I think sometimes that doesn't really resonate with Americans. Even when they travel overseas, they tend to
Even
think of
even when they're
themselves as
abroad, huh?
the ones who are at home. Talk about
Even
what
in China, they
led
think.
you to do that, to make that title.
Well, you just hit it. Our perception is the world is the foreigner and the Americans are the local guys. And even when we're in other countries, we still think of the other guys as the foreigners.
Mm-hmm.
And how much can we learn if we just take 2 seconds to say, you know what? Let me kind of get it from their side a little bit. How do they see what we're doing? What's it like for them to have us come on their soil and that sort of thing? So, yeah, it's just a change in perception.
Mm-hmm. Talk about the timing for the book. Here in Georgia, we have quite a few delegations that go from Georgia to China every year, and we host a lot of inbound delegations from China. And there's a lot of talk about building relationships. I was wondering if you could just talk about what led you to write this book at this time.
Well, it is true that China's kind of cool right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's riding that wave of we admit that there are things going on in China. We want to be a part of it
Mm-hmm.
too. We've already had the initial wave of getting settled down with factories and advising people and trying to move operations overseas and such.
Mm-hmm.
But soon we'll be entering that more of a mature sort of phase where things are settled down and they have to kind of figure out how they're going to do things long term.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think it's a good timing for the book, simply because it's not just that totally brand new feeling, but it is more of a let's get settled down and what was this going to be like for the long term.
What's the main thing you think that Americans don't understand about how their Chinese colleagues view them, based on your interviews?
It'd be a little bit of Americans are very bold and blunt and direct
Mm-hmm.
in the way that they do everything.
Mm-hmm.
We want it now, we want dates, we want details.
Mm-hmm.
And for other cultures, that's just harder to do. Chinese as a language is really interesting that way. That as a language, it's almost Tarzan talk when you learn some Chinese. They don't have the tenses, they don't have the
Mm-hmm.
articles, isn't that? But they're also very evasive sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this weird mixture of they come right out and say it, but they're also very evasive. North Americans, we are really, really blunt. I like it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't like it. I want it. I want it tomorrow. How many will there be? We just want those kind of
Mm-hmm.
details in a way that it's rather difficult for other countries to deal with our demanding to be so exact all the time.
Right. And did that come out in the interviews that you did with the Chinese side? Were they able to open up about the difficulties they had dealing with that from their American colleagues?
I'll give you just one quick example. I was interviewing one employee at a company, and as he walked in, I said, "Would you like some water?" He said, "No, thank you." Then he stood up and went to the water fountain, poured water for himself and for me, and came back and gave it to me. And I remember thinking, what a perfect example. That I asked, "Do you want water?" He said no, so I didn't give him any.
Right.
When really not only did he want it, he also got some for me.
Yeah.
So that same sort of thing of I heard the words, he said no, I just stopped right then.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens in a business context.
Right. I think it's so interesting you talked about the language. 2 words in Chinese that kind of show this. The word for China is Zhongguo, which means middle country.
Middle of the world, yeah.
And, the idea that not only do we think we're at the center of the world, the Chinese do in some ways. to bridge that gap. Also, their word for foreigner is Lao Wai, which
Yes,
literally has a context of outside.
outsider, yeah.
Yeah, old outsider, I guess, if you did it literally. But how important is it for business people going to China to learn the language, or at least enough that they can kind of build some rapport?
You know, the actual day-to-day work they're going to do is going to be less in Chinese. I mean, that is not the expectation. But I think even if you have a limited understanding of Chinese, it teaches you a lot. Quick example, the word for want in Chinese is yao. But you know, the nuance between want, need, would like, have to have, those are very subtle things. If you're speaking to somebody who is being forced to use their non-native English with you, and they say to you, I want a computer, what they may actually be saying is, I need a computer. And your reaction is going to be, well, we all want computers, sorry. You know, so even if you're not an actual Chinese speaker, by the mere fact that you're learning a little bit of Chinese, I think even helps you in that communication with the people that are talking to you, even in their broken English.
Right.
So the expectation is they're going to speak English with you, you're going to speak English with them. You get extra brownie points for learning Chinese, but there's no expectation of it.
Talk about the posture of Chinese business people towards foreigners working in their country, and how that has changed, say, over the past 10 to 20 years.
Well, I think, you know, if you look at the dot-com years where everybody was grasping really quickly at taking advantage of anything that came out and do it really fast now because tomorrow it won't be there, that is the sense you have with a lot of young executives in China. That this is the phase to seize the moment and to grab it really quick and to just keep on moving. And so if you go in there with this mindset that the Chinese people have a tradition of thousands and thousands of years, and they're going to, you know, take a long time to do this and do that and do this and do that. That isn't always true, because they're really in hyper mode right now.
Wow.
Knowing that, you know, this bubble may not last forever, let's jump in and get going right now.
Yeah.
You see that a lot.
Is there a sense of distance, or I guess how is the sense of distance between foreigners and in China and their Chinese counterparts? How has that changed? I mean, you know, there's a lot of talk in the news about the two countries working together and working through their differences, but still culturally there's a wide chasm. And I just wonder, has it become a more equitable partnership? The Chinese for a long time have, you know, had a chip on their shoulder about you know, foreigners coming into the country and kind of taking advantage. I was just wondering what your sense is of that.
A little bit, but there's such a desire for a learning curve. We did one of our interviews with an engineering firm. Almost all of their employees were graduates from local universities in Beijing. They had never left China in their lives, but English was the language they used every day at work. And even among themselves, they were using English. And I was amazed. I thought, you know, maybe use English in the meetings, but there was such a sense of, if I keep practicing my English, it'll be beneficial for me in my job and my future, and so I keep doing it now. So there is still a wave of, we are learning to do things more efficiently, and we're taking it on.
Is there a sense that these partnerships are more equitable now, though? It's less about coming to make a quick buck and more about kind of building the capacity in the country and things like that.
There is a sense of, show me that you're here for the long haul. You know, that they want to know that the partner they're going to work with is more interested than just a quick in and a quick out.
Right.
So if you can demonstrate that you want to be there for the long haul, that'll pay a lot of dividends.
So when does the book come out, and where can people get it?
It is already out.
Okay.
And so just to, you know, go to Amazon.com, type in the word "When We Are the Foreigners," and it'll pop right up, and it'll send it right home to you, so you can crack it open and start reading.
Great. Well, we really appreciate you taking your time to speak with us.
It was a lot of fun.
All right, great.
Talk to you later.